What's going on, guys? I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it. Where do I think this hobby is headed? Where is the future of Pokemon going? What are most collectors going to be collecting, in my opinion? And just here are my thoughts. This is just going to be my typical rant style video. I'm going to try and keep it shorter. I personally, you guys know that I personally love collecting theme decks. I love vintage cards. I've loved building my binders, and I love modern too. But my real true love in this hobby is in vintage cards. And I think I'm probably a dying breed. Yes, there are plenty of people out there that still are collecting vintage, that think vintage is better, or just get something out of vintage. They get the nostalgia out of it, but that cycle eventually is going to end where people are not feeling nostalgic for, the last 20 years of Pokemon. Guys, quiet. I'm making a video. Stop interrupting me. Anyways, as I was saying, I think that the cycle is ending for people that are nostalgic for Pokemon, and honestly, now people are getting into all of these modern sets. I'm going to throw Sun's relevant thing right now. That's what's hot right now. That's what people are trying to keep up with the Joneses with right now. That's, alt arts are all the rage. That's all we've been seeing on YouTube for the past, I don't even know, several months, maybe even years at this point, has been alt arts, watching prices, watching booster boxes. You guys know my theory. I think that Sword and Shield prices are going to pop just a little bit. And I mean that in terms of a bubble popping a little bit. Do I think that prices are going to crash? No, I don't think prices are going to crash, because fundamentally, there's only so much product out there. Every day, we're continuously ripping this product open. We've beaten this topic to a pulp. But my point is that I think product is because people are wanting to get this stuff. It's hot, it's relevant, and on top of that, the prices are going up. So people buy this stuff and then immediately get to feel good about it and get a deal on, flip. But for the most part, all of the vintage Grail cards, and you guys know I've been collecting vintage Grail cards, my vintage Grails at least, Crystals, Gold Stars, first edition, base set, and then soon I'm going to be going after first edition Shining, but I am still really not complete with my own goals. I still have a couple. I PSA graded my, where is that damn old cert? PSA graded my old cert, Nidoking. Well, the old slab that I had, not an old cert, it was a 7 cert, but they graded that from a 7 cert 9 to, now it's a 9 cert 8. They graded it a PSA 8 after sending the same card back to them. So that's kind of crazy. PSA 9 Nidoking again. But I think I'm going to go after a 10. Anyways, my point is, I'm getting off topic here, that I'm getting close to my vintage goals, but I'm still having some turbulence. And so to probably shift my focus before I lose my chance at a lot of this stuff. Because right now, not to make anybody FOMO, but we're seeing box prices rise, we're seeing alt arts rise, and I think there could be a slight retrace right now. And so I am keeping an eye on some alt arts that I'm interested in. I've talked about this in a previous video, but I think the future of Pokemon ultimately is in these modern sets. I think everyone is gravitating to what's new. That's where a lot of the growth is, and collectors are kind of a dying breed. And there's people that are never going to stop collecting vintage. I'm not saying that vintage is by any means dead. I'm certainly not selling my vintage collection so far. But I do also love the idea of these kind of hyped up high-end alt arts that are still way, way, way cheaper than even, some of my cheaper Grail cards that are vintage, and they aren't even PSA 10, they're PSA 9. Right now, there's so many PSA 10 modern alt arts, and you don't have to make sense to you, and the card's really clean, and you're super OCD, get a PSA 10. But I think there's plenty of value in buying PSA 9s. I'm going to stand by that, because I still think, if it's more affordable and you can get more bang for the buck, and you can have more of the alt arts that you like, then go for them in PSA 9. I don't think there's any shame in that. But I think most people are moving in the modern alt art direction and buying sealed booster boxes. There's been a ton of talk about investing right now in Pokemon. Invest in this. Don't miss on this. This is going to skyrocket. You don't want to miss the boat on that. And I believe a lot of that stuff honestly has already moved. I'm waiting on a retrace for a lot of that stuff. But again, this is what I think everybody is going to be focused on. I think it's clear and it's obvious that Scarlet and Violet hasn't done as well as Sword and Shield era, but we are now all seemingly coming around to Scarlet and Violet, right? In the beginning, Scarlet and Violet had a lot of flack. It had a lot of judgment. People were comparing it a lot, saying that it was never going to live up to the Sword and Shield era alt art status of just hype and Grail cards. You know, the Giratina from Lost Origin, the Blaziken from Chilling Reign, the Lugia from Silver Tempest, the Umbreon, and pretty much, let's not even get into the evolutions, because evolutions in general are just popping off. But all of the evolutions, I mean, everything in Sword and Shield is just crushing it right now. Even Battle Styles, which a lot of people thought was kind of weird that I made a large investment in Battle Styles, but Battle Styles right now is doing very well. It's right about to pass that MSRP $140, $143 mark, and I did see one weird sale from Australia for $166 for a booster box, and I'm not even counting the shipping. The shipping was $30, and that was not a best offer. That was an actual sale on that box, but pretty crazy. Most of the other sales have been around like 125, 130, 140 area, but it's nice to see that even picking up too. But like everything in Sword and Shield has been doing really, really well. But there was a time, even in Sword and Shield, that people were sitting out on stuff. And so I think, you know, we're finally seeing Scarlet and Violet being widely accepted, and people really talking up a lot of these sets. I've started to buy more cases of these sets, which I think is probably a dangerous thing for me to do. But I want to be in on the action like so many of you who are buying booster box and buying cases. But ultimately, I just think with all of the investment hype right now, I think with all of the alt arts starting to move up in price and people finally seeing returns on all the alt arts that they've been sitting on, and just seeing their collection go up in value, right? Let's forget about returns and making money, and people love to see their assets rise in value or even retain value, right? One of the big things here is not losing money in your collection, and that's something that I've prided myself on in the past couple of months, years, is buying into cards that I think are really, really stable and are going to be hard to find and will rise in value in the long term. Maybe they don't rise exponentially in value like some of these Sword and Shield alt arts or Sun and Moon alt arts or even some of the sealed boxes that have been really jumping in price. Fusion Strike is a great example. You know, outside of Evolving Skies, there are only so many boxes that are performing really well, and Fusion Strike is definitely one of those. But, you know, buying vintage cards is what I love. And if you love that, I would say stick with it. Do what you love in this hobby. Don't do just what everybody else is doing. But I do think everybody else is collecting Modern. Why is everybody collecting Modern? It is way more affordable. We can all relate to it. We can all get in on the action. We can all pretty much afford an alt art in a PSA 9 or, you know, maybe in a PSA 10, even though some of the PSA 10s now are getting very expensive. I think Giratina is now closing in on like $1,000 for a PSA 10, which is crazy. I do like Giratina. It's growing on me a lot. I can't believe how much some of these Pokemon have grown on me from when these sets came out and when I was really getting back into Pokemon. You know, a Pokemon like Giratina, I have no interest in that Pokemon whatsoever. Dialga, Palkia, but now I'm beginning to really enjoy these Pokemon and like their artworks and appreciate them. And I'm really glad I picked them up regardless, just because I wanted to have them for my sets. But I'm really, really glad, because some of them have just gotten really, really expensive. And some of my alt arts are probably PSA 9s. They're off-center or whatever. But I still am happy to own those cards. And the thing is, I still wanted to be a part of the modern wave, but I am really more so in vintage. But I do think the future of Pokemon is going to be in modern products and modern alt arts. And it's only getting better. I mean, I was really, really critical on Scarlet and Violet. Then they dropped 151. That looks amazing. Bring those in here right now. So I bought a waffle maker that I kind of regretted, a Pokemon waffle maker, and now we're actually using that waffle maker. So we have some Pikachu Pokeball waffles that we are going to smash here soon. Thank you, Diana, for making those PSA 10 worthy Pikachu Pokeball waffles. Those are awesome. Well done, Orion, on that Pokemon waffle maker investment. That's, you know, that's one of my better returns right there. Family memories. But really, things are just, they're popping off for Modern, and I think everybody is just going to be continuing to buy Modern. And I was very critical, like I said, on Scarlet and Violet. You got to let the dogs out. Now they're in here stuck with me. You guys haven't seen my dogs in a while. Guys, come over here. I haven't seen you in a while. You guys are the ones who are barking all the freaking time. And everybody deserves to meet you every once in a while. They've got hair in their face, but they're really cute, I promise. This is Cleo. This is Yorios. They like to make a lot of noise. We call these guys the yappers. And then we've got Maddie, our pit bull, in the other room. Okay, take them away now. Yeah, they're stuck in here. They literally have been by the door. They're like, no, get us back to Mom. We don't want to be in your game room. All right. But I was very critical on Scarlet and Violet. And then 151 dropped, and I was like, I'm completely sold. I love 151. I love all the arts in 151. This is incredible. I hope they do this again. I hope they do this with the Johto set. I hope they do it with Hoenn and just smash it. Even though Hoenn, I still like feel like is Modern. Like, I don't know, Kyogre, Groudon, and Rayquaza are such Modern concept Pokemon. They are so awesome. They really tried switching things up with those designs that I think ever since Gen 3, they've kind of been into Modern Pokemon. I don't know if that sounds right. To me, Gen 3 was where Modern really started, in my opinion. But I want to see them do more, you know, kind of modern vintage reprint sets like, you know, Kanto and Johto. I want to see that more. That was a really amazing set. I mean, still is an amazing set. 151 is my favorite set in Scarlet and Violet. You guys know that. I've opened a ton of it. I still haven't completed the Master set by opening it. But again, I think that sets like that, so many people came back into this hobby for 151, and I think they probably just went crazy on buying that set, and that got people back into Scarlet and Violet in general. I personally feel that 151 brought a lot of people back into the hobby, and because of that, Scarlet and Violet is going to do better. I think it was very strategic of Pokemon to release that set kind of in the middle of the era, so that basically people weren't kind of, you know, getting tired of the new art styles and the new concepts and the Terra Crown art style. I think that they were very strategic in bringing 151 in, which really featured none of that, you know, Terra Crown art style. It was very OG based, but with a modern spin. And that's one of my favorite things that Pokemon has done. And I hope they can continue to do that. I was watching Pokemon Wonders and Johto Jake, who's one of my buddies. I was watching their stream kind of podcast last night. And they brought up some really good points. Definitely go check out Pokemon Wonder if you have not. He's fantastic. He's a legend in the community. Does a lot of great streams with a lot of great creators. But they were talking how every kid, you know, every kid knows what the Umbreon is. They immediately think of the Evolving Skies Umbreon. They're not thinking of Neo Discovery. They're not thinking of Skyridge. They're thinking of Evolving Skies. So that's where things are right now. That's what kids are going to remember. That's what, when they have disposable, experiencing it now and seeing it now, you know, whenever we're around events or trade events or at Collecticon or having this event at my bar where everyone came and vended and sold and traded cards, there was so much Modern everywhere, right? And people are very hyper-focused on Modern right now, and that's okay. That's just where things are going, and I think Scarlet and Violet has done a really good job. Am I a huge fan of a lot of the trainer SIRs that we're getting in this era as opposed to Sword and Shield? With Sword and Shield, we really didn't get very many trainer kind of alt arts or SIRs at, you know, was a very hyped up card for a period of time. But now with Scarlet and Violet, it's become a norm that we have all of these trainer SIRs, and I'm not a big fan of that. But they're still knocking it out of the park with their artworks, okay? We can't argue with that. I can't argue with that. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of some of the Pokemon, well, most of the Pokemon, I'm very basic. There are a select group of Pokemon that I really appreciate, and that's okay. You know, everybody has their Ninja SIR and the Kingdra SIR coming. They really should not have been promos, but incredible. Oh my goodness. The artwork that we are getting in the future sets is incredible. And, you know, it really makes me feel secure in this hobby and continuing safe on. But the more I see these sets drop and the more people are talking about them and opening them and enjoying them, you know, people were really hyped up about Paradox Rift. They were really hyped up about Paldean Fates, which I think is a pretty good special set, but all I really want out of that set is the Mew and the Gardevoir. And I think for anybody watching this, one of the best things that you can take from this video, if you are new to this hobby and collecting, forget all the noise of all the cards you have to have and completing master sets. Leave that to other people, okay? Because while I love creating master sets and my binders, I am falling behind on binders because it's so much to keep up with in this hobby. To make that binder, you have to open, you know, a booster box or 2 booster boxes and some other products, and I don't have the kind of money to keep up with. Well, I do, but I choose to put it into vintage. But right now, I can't keep up with my vintage goals and trying to spend a lot of money opening product to complete these sets and work on these sets. So one thing I will leave you guys with, and I have 0 regrets on my Sword and Shield binders, because those things, that is going to be regarded as one of the greatest eras of all time. So I'm really happy I got to work on those binders. But one thing I do want to leave you guys with before we close up this video, because I did want it to be a little shorter, don't worry about all the noise. Go after the cards that you love most right now. Go after the singles of buy sealed booster boxes. I think this is the formula for the hobby that works the best for most. And then buy the single alt arts that you like or SIRs that you like. Whether it's great, the pitfalls of just overdoing it. And man, I can definitely speak on that. And I'm going to save that for another video, as well as one of the biggest auctions that we have seen in a while is going down right now. I am not going to give any hints on that. Really big deal, and I think it will say a lot about the vintage market. I think it's very dead, but vintage is just, it's settling right now, right? It's hit a plateau, but the mass majority of vintage is just like nobody cares about it, right? So many first edition cards in Neo and in Gym Heroes and Gym Challenge that I love so much, and they're super affordable. I'm going to be able to buy those cards semi-easily because they're just kind of forgotten. You know, they're relics of the past, and people are just hyper-focused on modern right now. But I'm going all over the place. But yeah, don't burn yourself out. Take things slow. Sometimes it's okay to even take a break from things, but we'll talk about that in another video. Collect what you love, guys. Really exciting to see what's coming down the pipeline. We've got Shrouded Fable. We've got a sneak peek, and I love some of the illustrations that we're seeing. Again, nothing that makes me like freak out by any means, but I'm just going to say that I appreciate Pokemon for continuing to step it up, right? They know what they've got now. This franchise is continuing to grow. It has outgrown past the pandemic highs, right? They're printing more than ever. People are absorbing more than ever. People are buying more than ever. Scarlet and Violet is somehow, these boxes, in my opinion, are starting to move at a quicker pace than Sword and Shield boxes were moving. And I don't understand that, how that's even possible, because they printed a crap load more of Scarlet and Violet sets. So how in the world is that happening? I don't understand it, but I'm not going to fight it. So I am investing into Scarlet and Violet sets, and I'm excited for the future of Pokemon. And this next era coming is going to be really exciting for all of us, whether you're coming into Scarlet and Violet or you've been here for a long time, or you came into, you know, the end of Sun and Moon like I did. It's been really amazing to see all of these sets. And while Scarlet and Violet hasn't been really like shocking to me, I still appreciate it. And for me personally, I think this was an amazing era because it gave me some time to focus on what I love more, which is the vintage stuff. But you know, in Sword and Shield, it was really difficult. I was trying to keep up with everything in Sword and Shield while also trying to chase my goals. And with Scarlet and Violet, I don't feel that same pressure. With Scarlet and Violet, I feel like I can kind of take my time, and there aren't really many SIRs that I'm crazy about. And the one set that I was crazy about was 151, and I went crazy on 151. I have so many lives opening up 151. I had a wall piling up of product in front of me for 151 that I've now given away all those boxes. But great memories in Scarlet and Violet because of that set. And I really do think that Modern is the future of Pokemon, and we're just going to see more and more people come into this hobby. It's really exciting. But I do have some doubts and some fears for Vintage, and it's kind of sad. A lot of people, in my opinion, and this is one of my last points, guys, and then I'm gonna let you go. But I think a lot of people are just being priced out of Vintage. I think even myself, I'm being priced out of some of the cards that I still want. It's getting very, very hard to go after these cards and be able to afford them, let alone like to try to find them in the wild raw and try and grade them. Like, you can forget about that. That's damn near impossible at this point to grade these cards in mint condition. There are still people out there that are finding gold stars and crystals, and there are box breaks happening, but they're very they're very rare and scarce. You don't see people finding these raw cards often anymore. Whereas Modern is everywhere. People are still finding this stuff raw and grading it and getting 10s. So I think that's the future. But yeah, I think a big reason that people aren't into Vintage, guys, is not necessarily because, you know, Vintage is worse in any way, or the artwork just is boring. I don't think it's that. I think people would appreciate Vintage and they would want to have Vintage, but the prices for a lot of the nicer Vintage cards have just priced people out. So I think that's just the reality, that the average person is not going to afford spending $1,000, a couple thousand on a Grail first edition card. It's just not going to happen. You know, my favorite set, one of my favorite WotC sets is Skyridge, and you know, I want to complete that set, and I can barely make it happen. Those cards are getting really expensive, and you know, cards like the Skyridge Gengar is still on my checklist, and I just can't seem to find one to pop up for a decent price. Anyways, yeah, I think it's just, there's going to be a small group of people still collecting Vintage that still enjoy it and love it. And I am definitely one of those people. I will continue to collect Vintage. It's what I love, and you've got to do what you love in this hobby. But yeah, I think the future is in Modern. I think that's what everyone's going for. I think that's where the growth is. And that's where all the appreciation is. And not only is it more affordable and cheaper, and you can have fun with it, and everybody's talking about it, so it's super relevant, but also you're buying these cards in these boxes and you're seeing the price steadily rise. And there's not many things in our lifetime like Pokemon where you can buy it and those prices will steadily rise. I mean, we're comparing Pokemon at this point to like real estate, okay? You know, how stable real estate is, that's where Pokemon is right now. It's very stable. And you know, there's a lot of people that think that we're in a bubble and that we're due for a correction soon. And then there's a massive, you know, the mass majority of people think that it's just going to keep on rising. And, you know, maybe that's going to be how it is. Maybe it's just going to be one of those stable alternate investments that, you know, alternate assets that changes everything. I mean, Pokemon, it amazes me. This hobby amazes me, guys. And, yeah, so talked about the future, where everyone's going. I think Modern is going to be, you know, what everybody focuses on, and the alt arts and the sealed investment world, that whole investing environment where everyone is stocking up on cases and booster boxes. That is the future of this hobby. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see where things go. And I'm going to let you guys off because I've been ranting too long. But peace, everybody.